Hello everyone, it's Lateralus here again with of Team Rankstar here with my teammate. Don't laugh at me.
Apologize. I was thinking about a corny intro and then I didn't do it. But I was giggling at myself just thinking about
Well,
it.
who are you?
Well, I'm EndoZoa, not doing a corny intro.
I'm
Just by
sure you'll
giggling
be
at
in the
myself
next
about
one.
it. Oh yeah.
Well, welcome everyone. We have arrived at our top 10 countdown. We will be only going from 10 to 6 in this video. But we're getting to the nitty gritty here. Getting to some of the best cards in the game. So, yeah, quick recap as always. The criteria for this is the impact the card has in the current metagame, as well as how many copies and how many high tier decks that you actually see the card in. And then, of course, the impact of the card when played. So, let's just go ahead and get started with number 10, and it's going to be one of everyone's absolute favorites, and that's going to be Genius Pathmage. This card has definitely warped the meta, being introduced in Houses of Morrowind. For those that don't know, it's a 6-cost intelligent creature that's a 4/4, and its summon effect is where all the power is. Summon a random creature from your deck with cost equal to your current magicka. Basically, without this card, Nixox combo does not exist. And that is one of the best card decks in the game, if not the best deck in my opinion. But this card kind of just creates a way for control decks to win, as well as enable combo decks. And I think that's the main reason that it is getting the nod to make the cut for top 10.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a core card in a lot of other powerful decks as well. The principal one being Pathmage Tribunal, which is probably the best current control tribunal shell. Although there might be more we'll see over time. You see Chanter Tribunal as well. It's also a centerpiece in Path Mage, which is one of the better named decks in the game, which is that alternative to mid BM largely, although it's a little bit slower. So as that kind of hybridization of reactive and proactive play. This card in general, though, just I mean, it's an effect we don't see anywhere else in the game in general in CCGs. By that I mean being able to search your deck for a particular card and either put it in your hand or into play as Pathmage does is an incredibly powerful effect. The fact that you can build your deck around this card in such a way that you always know what you're getting at a certain mana cost enables it to do some pretty insane things. This is a card, too, that as we go into future expansions will only continue to get more powerful as more options are given to it, as the toolbox at its disposal is larger, the interactions it'll be able to be more powerful, and yeah, it's the premier win condition in some of the strongest decks in the game.
All right. Let's move on to number 9. And we have Sower of Revenge. It is the warrior class 5-cost creature. That's a 5/5 guard. Last gasp deals 5 damage to the enemy player. This was a monthly reward about, I'd say about a year and a half ago. Maybe a little bit less than that. But really, warrior wasn't really a thing until this card existed. This really kind of put the deck over the top in terms of power. Obviously, it's picked up other cards that have made it a lot better, and the tier 1 deck or high tier 2, whatever you want to consider it, deck that we see today. But this card is one of the best decks against or best cards versus control. But it also just having guard and that ability to protect your other threats, and I think one of the other biggest pluses is being able to slam it into a shadow lane when you're like kind of in a race and your opponent like is trying to kill you, but then you slam this in front of them and then like, oh, that 5 damage is gonna kill me now and I can't really ignore it because it has a guard. But yeah, definitely I think worthy of the top 10 here.
Yeah, so one of the things I talked about earlier when you were talking about Hand of Day Off is that Its biggest weakness is just that it has no immediate impact on board. Solar Revenge with guard will always impact the board. A 5/5 guard for 5 is below rate if you are trying to strictly race, but the last gasp, as you're mentioning, kind of turns that around. When you are in a proactive position, this is a card that often just gives your opponent choice, and also the ability to overload a lane and sacrifice it can give you even faster lethals out of nowhere. This is a card that can do 10 damage in one turn for that reason. Yeah, it is a centerpiece in Aggro Warrior to this day, and is one of the reasons that the deck is, most people would argue, a tier 1 deck, or at the very least a high tier 2 deck. So yeah.
All right, so that's gonna bring us to number 8, and this is probably the simplest card in our top 10, and that is going to be Firebolt. This may shock a lot of people, to be honest, but there's good reason why it's here. It's a 1-cost intelligence action that just simply says deal 2 damage to a creature. And I think the biggest thing is it's staple removal. Pretty much, again, almost any blue deck, even some aggressive, maybe not everyone runs Firebolt, but it's just super versatile. It's low cost, and 2 health is, I think this card is the main reason why, you look at a creature and it's like, oh, 2 health is kind of bad on this 3-cost card or something like that, whereas opposed, 3 health is a lot better. I think that is because of Firebolt. It kind of warps the meta a little bit in that way. But yeah, I definitely think this card is a top card of Legends. And but yeah, what do you think about it?
Yeah, we talked about Windkeep Spellsword earlier as being one of the types of cards that does warp that is a 2/3 or a 3/2 a better stat line in this game. Firebolt is probably the primary card that controls that. It's one of the main checks to some of the other most powerful cards in the game, like Goblin Skulk. It's a centerpiece in a lot of decks that probably couldn't operate without it, really. It has extreme flexibility. Its ability to, again, because you have to consider this card in context, because it is a blue card in conjunction with Daggerfall Mage and Breton Conjurer as a way to self-ping is really important, as well as its ability to really just to be efficient on rate. Of course, you always want to be trading cards 1 for 1 when you can. However, this is the kind of effect where dealing twice as much damage as you are spending mana is really way above curve. If we were to think about this in different contexts, imagine if Lightning Bolt did 8 damage. And that just sounds completely ridiculous.
Or even 6.
Right, even 6 damage. Right, yeah, or right, yeah. Say if say if Reverberating Strike did 6 damage. Like, just imagine that for a moment. Obviously, Firebolt is lower value in that it is a card that is only doing 2 damage, but that should give you enough tempo that is built into this card and the amount that it can bring you back on the board very quickly. Also, because Elder Scrolls Legends is the Shadow Lane, a direct interaction is even more powerful than it is in other games of similar genre. This is an effect that lets you interact when nothing else will, when a charged creature will not. And it's a staple in many of the best decks in the game: Nixox, Battle Mage, Tribunal, etc.
All right, so let's move on to number 7. And I spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to pronounce this card, and I still don't know if I'm right, but it is Odir Niren Necromancer. That's what we're going with. Probably one of the most commonly pronounced cards, and again, I may be saying it wrong. I don't know. Someone get back to me if you know how to say this, pronounce this correctly. Leave it in the comments because I want to know.
Chris, I think the issue is I'm not sure anybody knows how to pronounce this. Do you think that the creative department at Bethesda knows how to pronounce the name? I'm not sure they do.
Maybe
they might not.
Maybe CVH can get back to us, find out from whoever is supposed to know in that department. But anyways, it's a 6-cost endurance creature. It's a 3/3, so very understated. But again, this is similar to Path Mage, where all of the power lies is in its summon effect, and it is Summon a creature from your discard pile with less power than Odinir Necromancer. Now, I had this actually as, like, I believe my third card on my list, and there's one main reason for that. And then I'm going to let you talk about it. This card, when it came out in Houses of Morrowind, it literally created an archetype. You saw this card really put Scout over the top, having the ability to just raise the removal creatures such as Sanctuary Pet or Territorial Viper. Viper's been around since the beginning of time, and that card's never seen play until this one existed. Just the fact that you can reuse it, you don't have to slam 3 copies in your deck or anything like that. But also the fact that you can just recur things like, Merchant's Camel, things of that nature, Endoro Mastermind, things to get you through your deck faster, as well as, just your charged lethal creatures or things of that nature. And you do see synergy with it, with cards like 5th Legion Trainer, Orc Clan Captain, Divine Fervor, things of that nature, where you're buffing this card, it enters the field, and then it has higher power, or even something like Galen, so then you can just recur like another Necromancer, then another card, or things of that nature. Just especially off Galen, you can just recur absurd things, pretty much anything in your graveyard. But this card just really enabled that graveyard recursion archetype, and it really has warped the meta in a very powerful way. I think, if in my opinion, if this card was removed from the game, it is probably one of the top 1 or 2, maybe even 3 most cards that would, if removed from the game, the meta would change the most, is I guess what I'm trying to say. I probably worded that really poorly, but hopefully you guys understand what I'm trying to get at.
I think that made plenty of sense. I think this card is super powerful, and it's in a way that is similar, but even maybe in a more extreme way to some of the other cards you mentioned, in that its baseline effect is just already good, but when you the synergy, things just get ridiculous. Even if you're just bringing back, a Barrow Stalker or a Fighter's Guild recruit or a Sanctuary Pet, you're already happy with this card. But when you're yes, as you said, when you start playing Galin on this card, when you bring
Uprising.
back when you bring back a Camel and then you Uprising, right?
Yeah.
When you play this card and you pull back a Doppelganger, the Doppelganger targets a Necromancer, and you pull back another Doppelganger, and the Doppelganger comes back and it targets a Necromancer, and then you Uprising, and then you pull back 3 Camels, and it's like, what?
There,
the card, the card has all these ridiculous high ends, but the key so many of these cards is that while they have that high end ridiculous potential, it's just a good card on curve. It doesn't really, you just pull, you pull a pet, you pull a Viper, you pull a pet, or
we didn't even mention Hissmage yet.
Yeah,
this was pretty much the reason Hissmage came back too.
Yeah.
Endless Ramp.
It's just,
I think another thing is, like, with the cycle cards played prior to it on curve, you're not afraid to dump certain cards. Like, you don't actually usually have to keep like Viper in hand or stuff. You're like, oh, I don't actually want to play this card because no one ever did beforehand, but it's like, I like it in my graveyard though because Necromancer's a card now. So I think it's absolutely insane.
This card on its own massively buffed Camel in particular, but also Scout's Report, Endoro Mastermind. Even you can argue some of like the discard mechanics like Gambler to some extent, where the ability to put things in your discard before, and also enabled toolbox strategies because you had more control over recurring certain types of effects than you'd ever had before. So yeah.
All right. Well, we had a lot to say about that one. It's just, like I said, I had it in my top 3. But yeah, insane, absolutely insane card. But let's move on to number 6. We don't want to take too long here. And everyone's going to know this card. You'll either love it or you'll hate it. And that is Ice Storm. Again, this has been around since the beginning of time. and it really has been the control staple AoE spell. It's by far the best one in the game. 6 cost intelligent action that says deal 3 damage to all creatures. But yeah, I mean, this is probably one of the most played around cards in the game when you're talking about aggro or mid-range versus control. You're always conscious of when they have access to 6 mana and it's a deck that likely would have Ice Storm, you're always trying to play around it as best as you can. And I think a lot of times it goes to say to the power of the card that you're just like, well, if they have Ice Storm, I lose. If they don't, then I probably win.
Yeah, I think it's honestly really hard to pick a card that defines the Elder Scrolls than Ice Storm. It is the reason why the 4 health threshold is so important. It's literally for Ice Storm. And it is critical to the way that you must play most games. It's critical to the way that you make trades. It's the reason why you'd rather have a creature as a 4/4 and a creature as a 4/1 than a creature as a 4/3 and a creature as a 4/2.
Yeah, I think a lot of times you see people trade off cards.
Yeah, literally.
Just to keep a creature above this range rather than put 2 creatures below.
Right. Yeah. Right. Exactly. You'd rather have a 4/4 and a dead creature than like 2 4/2s a lot of the times, which is like completely ridiculous, but it's the case. So yeah, absolutely defines the game. Definitely deserves its spot.
All right, well, that will round out 6 through 10. We've talked about a lot of crazy powerful cards, and we still got the top 5 to go that didn't make it. It's kind of crazy, but so we got one more episode. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I know it ran a little bit longer, but we had some cards to talk about on this one. So tune in next time for the final episode and our top 5 best cards in Legends.